Hello, friends. Welcome back to Tales of Great Minds. Today, I'm going to tell you about a teenager who impersonated an airline pilot, a doctor, a lawyer, and a professor, all before he turned 21. He cashed over $2.5 million in fraudulent checks across 26 countries. The FBI chased him for 5 years, and when they finally caught him, they hired him. This is the story of Frank Abagnale, the greatest con artist America has ever seen. A story so unbelievable they made a movie about it starring Leonardo DiCaprio. But the real story? It's even crazier. So, buckle up, because this tale has more twists than a Hollywood thriller. Frank William Abagnale Jr. was born in 1948 in Bronxville, New York. His father, Frank Sr., was a successful businessman. His mother, Paulette, was French. To young Frank, his father was a hero, a self-made man who drove a Cadillac and wore expensive suits. But when Frank was 14, everything fell apart. His parents got divorced. The judge asked Frank to choose, mom or dad. Frank couldn't choose, so he just ran out of the courtroom and never went home. At 16 years old, Frank Abagnale was alone. No money, no education, no plan. What he did have was intelligence, charm, and an incredible talent for lying. Frank's first con was simple. He made himself look older. He altered his driver's license, changing his birth year from 1948 to 1938. Suddenly, he wasn't 16, he was 26. With his new identity, he got a job, but the paychecks weren't enough. He was barely surviving. So Frank had an idea, a crazy, brilliant, completely illegal idea. He opened a bank account and ordered checks. But these weren't normal checks. Frank discovered he could print his account number on deposit slips at the bank. Then he'd place those slips in the pile for other customers to use. When people made deposits using his slips, the money went into his account instead of theirs. In just 3 months, he stole $40,000. That's nearly $400,000 in today's money. But Frank was just getting started. His next con? Absolutely insane. One day, 16-year-old Frank saw a Pan Am pilot walking through an airport. The uniform, the respect, the free flights. And he thought, I want that. So he called Pan Am, claiming to be a high school student writing a report about aviation. Could they send him some information? They sent him everything. Brochures, photos, even details about their uniforms. Frank went to a uniform shop and told them he was a pilot who lost his uniform. They made him a perfect replica. Then he created a fake Pan Am ID badge using a model airplane kit and a Polaroid camera. Just like that, Frank Abagnale became Captain Frank Williams, a Pan Am co-pilot. Now, Frank wasn't actually flying the planes. That would be impossible. Instead, he used something called deadheading. Airlines let their pilots fly for free in the jump seat of the cockpit when traveling between assignments. It's a professional courtesy. Frank flew over 1 million miles on Pan Am for free, just by wearing a uniform and flashing a fake ID. He stayed in fancy hotels, ate expensive meals, signed everything to his employee account. And here's the crazy part. Pan Am picked up the bill because they thought he was a real pilot. But Frank needed cash. Free flights were great, but he had to eat. He had to live. So he started cashing fake checks at hotels and airports around the world. He'd check into a hotel as Captain Williams, cash a fake paycheck at the hotel desk, then fly to the next city and do it again. Paris, Rome, London, Tokyo, Hong Kong. By the time banks realized the checks were fake, Frank was on another continent. For 2 years, he lived like a king, a teenage king, but the FBI was starting to notice. Eventually, Frank got nervous about the pilot gig. Too much attention. So he retired Captain Williams and became someone new. A doctor. Frank moved to Georgia and got an apartment. His neighbor was a real doctor. They became friends. One day, the neighbor asked, "What do you do?" Frank, without missing a beat, said, "I'm a pediatrician." The neighbor was so impressed, he helped Frank get a job as a supervising physician at a hospital. Let me repeat that. A 19-year-old high school dropout with zero medical training became a supervisor at a hospital. Now, Frank wasn't actually treating patients. He was smart enough to know that would kill someone. He only supervised, signed papers, looked official. But one night, a baby stopped breathing. Nurses ran to Frank, yelling, "Doctor, help!" Frank had no idea what to do. Absolutely none. Luckily, another doctor rushed in and saved the baby. That's when Frank realized this con could actually kill someone. So after 11 months, he quit. Next, Frank moved to Louisiana and decided to become a lawyer. He forged a Harvard law degree, studied real legal textbooks for weeks, and passed the Louisiana bar exam on his third try. Yes, you heard that right. A con artist with no formal education passed the bar exam. For 9 months, Frank worked as an assistant attorney general in Louisiana. A real legal job. He was good at it too. Never lost a case. Then came his most audacious con yet. College professor. Frank applied to teach sociology at Brigham Young University. He faked his credentials and got hired. For an entire semester, he taught college students. A 20-year-old criminal teaching sociology to people his own age. But by now, the FBI was closing in. Enter FBI agent Carl Hanratty. In the movie, he's played by Tom Hanks. Carl had been chasing Frank for years. Every time he got close, Frank disappeared. It became personal, an obsession. Carl had to catch this kid. Frank later said they spoke on the phone multiple times. Sometimes Frank would call Carl just to taunt him. Imagine that. A teenager prank calling an FBI agent. In 1969, Frank made a mistake. He was in France, and an ex-girlfriend recognized him from a wanted poster. She called the police. French police arrested him in Montpellier. Frank Abagnale, the ghost who'd evaded capture for 5 years, was finally caught. He was 21 years old. Serious. Frank was thrown into a French prison. And French prisons in 1969? Absolutely brutal. Tiny cell, no light, rats everywhere. He lost 40 pounds. He spent a year there before being extradited to Sweden, then finally back to the United States. He was sentenced to 12 years in federal prison. But here's where the story takes an incredible turn. After serving less than 5 years, the FBI made Frank an offer. Work for us. Help us catch other con artists and forgers, or stay in prison. Frank took the deal. He became an FBI consultant, the greatest forger in history, now teaching the FBI how to detect forgeries. It's like hiring a master thief to design your security system. Today, Frank Abagnale is in his 70s. He's worked with the FBI for over 40 years. He founded a financial fraud consultancy company. Banks, corporations, governments, they all hire him. He's a millionaire. Legally this time. Frank has been married to the same woman for over 40 years. They have 3 sons. He never committed another crime. From teenage con artist to FBI hero, it's one of the greatest redemption stories in American history. So what can we learn from Frank Abagnale? First, intelligence without direction is dangerous. Frank was brilliant, but he used his gifts for crime. Imagine what he could have accomplished if he'd applied that brain to something legitimate from the start. Second, your past doesn't define your future. Frank made terrible choices as a kid, but he turned it around. He used his criminal expertise for good. Third, confidence can take you anywhere. Frank talked his way into being a pilot, a doctor, a lawyer, and a professor with no qualifications. Confidence is powerful, but use it wisely. Frank once said, "I was a victim of my own actions, but I was also a victim of circumstances." His parents' divorce broke something in him. But instead of staying broken, he rebuilt himself the right way. The movie Catch Me If You Can is incredible, but the real story? Even better. Frank Abagnale fooled the world, then he saved it. Thanks for watching Tales of Great Minds. If you enjoyed this story, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment. What was Frank's most impressive con? Next week, I have another mind-blowing story coming your way. Until then, stay curious, stay honest, and remember, your past is not your prison. Takes a sip of tea. See you in the next one.